Yo, what's up? Welcome to the Open the Line Friday edition. Corey and Benny. Benny's still down the shore. Benny, when are you making your way back up to the rest of the family?
Never.
Benny.
Never. No, this is actually my last day of bachelorhood. The kids and my wife will be down here after tonight, and then we're staying most of next week for July 4th, right. And then, the Monday after July 4th, I'll come back up to civilization.
I thought you was going to make that phone call, Benny. You remember coming to America? I mean, not coming to America, Harlem Nights. Hey, let me talk to your mother. Daddy's not coming home.
I mean, honestly, like I've had it's been nice down here. It's been quiet. I got the pool in the backyard, so I can go hop in there. Put most of the stuff together. The only thing I'm still waiting on right now is the couch. Everything else got delivered. Beds are all put together. Kitchen tables together. All the outdoor furniture's together. So just waiting on my couches right now.
Well, excuse me, slowly but surely starting to come together. So that's good news right there. Today we'll get into some picks, my prize picks, some MLB picks, all of that stuff a little bit later on. I had a parlay that would have hit last night. I didn't play it. I feel terrible when that's done. I'll play it tonight, and it won't hit. It's life, Benny. But you know what? Let's talk some fantasy football on a Fantasy Football Friday. Last night, one of the kickoff events of the fantasy football season, you had the FSGA Experts Draft right here in New York City, 14-team PPR. Run through the list right quick of participants. You got Sports Forecast, Digger Tenborough, Mark Zillinger from Zildjian. That's a new company, must be. RT Sports is Tim Jensen. Tim Jensen's a real cool guy. RT Sports, they do a great job over there, too. Jensen normally will look out with me with a couple of league entries. So I like that. You got USA Today, Steve Gardner, and Howard Kamen. Everybody knows Steve Gardner, a legend in this industry. The NFFC crew of Greg Ambrosius and Tom Kesenich. You got Roto Ballers Ralph. You got The Huddle with the Bonini brothers. You got Matt Spolstra of the Crown League. Benny, have you heard of the Crown League?
I have heard of the Crown League. It's it seems a little bit ambitious, so I'm looking forward to see if they can pull this off. For those of you who don't know, basically the idea behind the Crown League is they're trying to make it like real football. Yeah. So there's they hired managers to manage each one of the teams in the different regions around the country. They're taking money from people as the money to run the league, like if it was a real league. So like I said, it's a very ambitious concept. I'm, interested to see how they pull it off.
Yeah, I've met with them a couple times, you know what I'm saying? Like you said, it's very ambitious, but no, it's it's going to be like the NFL. I talked to them about being the Rich Eisen of the joint, whatever. And then I've also talked to them about some role with the New York squad. Maybe it's general manager or something like that. But like you said, it's very ambitious. It should be good to go, and we'll keep you updated on more situations on that stuff right there as we move along. Then you had the SiriusXM fantasy team drafted by Lisa Ann. Then you have Colton and the Wolfman, Rick Wolf and Glenn Colton. RotoWire's Chris Liss, fantasy alum with Howard Bender. ESPN sends Mike Clay, and The Athletic has our good buddy Nando DeFino. Now, Nando DeFino is one of my favorite people in the whole entire world.
Agree.
Nando was in this league for FNTSY, I believe it was 2 seasons ago. And the way they do it at the FSTA draft, or at least did it that year, was you're able to pick your own draft spot. It's a 14-team league, whatever. And they went around the room and they were asking people, why did you pick this spot? Why did you pick this spot? So when they got to Nando and they saw that Nando asked Nando, why did you pick the 12th spot? He was like, well, because Colton and the Wolfman were 11, Ray Flowers was 13, and that's kind of who I wanted to sit next to.
That's a very Nando answer, actually.
Yes. That's the most Nando thing ever.
It really is, but
yes. He was like, Nando was like, these are the friends I wanted to sit next to. That's why I picked. That was his strategy, who he wanted to sit next to.
And you know what? That's for anybody who knows Nando, they're not surprised about that, because Nando's all about just having a good time and feeling comfortable and being cool with the people around you. So he wanted to sit by people he liked. I don't blame him.
Let's run through the first round right quick, Benny. Then I'll look at some 4-round combinations. Try not to keep everybody too long today. Saquon Barkley, Benny, is looking like becoming a consensus 1-1 pick.
I mean, again, I had the 1-1 pick in our in our fantasy guru draft, and that's what I went with it too. He was the guy who I just felt the best about. I mean, I think the first 4 picks to me are pretty much always the same. It's just a matter of what order you put a lot of those guys in. But for me, Saquon Barkley is the clear number 1.
Followed by Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, Ezekiel Elliott.
That's the 4.
And now I agree with you right there. That's the 4, Benny. Kamara is going to be interesting to see where Kamara slides in when it's all said and done. We're seeing him as that 4th guy a lot a couple weeks ago. Now you've seen him sometimes with that 1 guy, most times with that 2 guy. Christian McCaffrey after the big season last year. Ezekiel Elliott, the talent. The next pick, that Greg Ambrosius and crew, they take David Johnson, leaving Le'Veon Bell and Melvin Gordon on the board, Benny.
This is where it gets a little tough for me because I don't really have a strong take on how to go from there. I mean, at the beginning of the year, I probably would have been at the beginning of the draft season, I probably would have said I'm going Le'Veon Bell, number 5. That obviously that whole thing with Adam Gase scares me a little bit, but I still think he deserves to be a first-round pick. Again, David Johnson, we've seen what David Johnson can do when David Johnson is the lead guy in a good system, right? I mean, what was it? And again, it seems like a long time ago. It's almost 3 seasons ago right now when he had that huge year where him and Le'Veon Bell were basically going back and forth every game, putting up massive daily fantasy numbers and massive weekly numbers for fantasy league.
He averaged 29 points a game that season. The year when LaDainian Tomlinson more or less made the rules change in fantasy, he averaged 32 points a game. So that's the kind of season that David Johnson had that year.
Yeah, and now you're talking about putting him in a Kingsbury system that's more up tempo, and they're going to be passing a lot, and it's going to lead to him getting not only carries but catches out of the backfield. Like, I mean, honestly, David Johnson could end up being the number 1 back in fantasy this year. The problem is it's not a certainty that he will be. You know what I mean? Like, we could also see him be a 15, 18 touch a game guy and, be a solid RB1. I don't think it's a bad pick because I do expect him to end the season as an RB1. Again, there's just – it's a lot of uncertainty about how well he can actually do because we don't know what that system's going to be like in the NFL.
After David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, and Melvin Gordon, kind of stock right there. So you see 7 running backs drafted to start the draft, Benny, and I don't know if David Johnson would beat out some of those wide receivers for me, but definitely Le'Veon Bell and Melvin Gordon as 2. Bell, like you said, you worry about Adam Gase. With Gordon, the consistency is there. You just obviously the health is always going to be an issue. Mm-hmm. He's a player you're going to have to back up. He's a big part of that offense, and it's very efficient when he's on the field. The first wide receiver to go off the board is DeAndre Hopkins. Then the second wide receiver to go off the board is Odell Beckham. They go with the next 2 picks, Benny. D-Hop, Beckham, I don't mind it. I would take Beckham over D-Hop, but if you got D-Hop over Beckham, it's not like that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have D-Hop over Beckham if it's my choice in that spot. But again, I'm the same way as you. I'm not going to argue if somebody takes Odell Beckham. To me, I think it's 2 sides of the same coin. And I also like Devontae Adams, who was the 3rd wide receiver taken in this draft. You had 9 running backs in the first round. You had 3 wide receivers. And I think the 3 wide receivers that went are the 3 wide receivers that should go in the first round, and Hopkins, Beckham, and Adams. And like I said, you could switch those 2, but that's actually the exact order that I have those 3 in.
Yep. When you come back after those 2 go, James Conner comes out. Then you get your boy Devontae Adams. Mm-hmm. Joe Mixon locked into the first round right now. We read that stat. I remember I told you the other day, Joe Mixon is the guy that's up there as far as the bookmakers are concerned to lead the league in rushing. Mixon could be looking at a breakout fantasy season. Travis Kelce goes with the 13th pick, then Nando with the very smart pick of Michael Thomas to end the first round of the draft. So, Benny, the first round kind of looks like what it does, like what you expect it would look like. No problems with any of these picks, the way it shook out. The Travis Kelce thing is interesting, but I'm not a tight end in the first round guy, but I can't rail against somebody taking a tight end in the first round, especially when it's Kelce, considering that, we're starting to hear rumors that it probably could be a 4 to 6 game suspension for Tyreek Hill, meaning that offense will run through Travis Kelce to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, my big thing with the tight end in the first round is that you have 3 tight ends that are head and shoulders above the rest of the field, right? I mean, you have Kelce, you have Ertz, you have Kittle. After those 3, though, there's a huge drop-off. So there is an argument to be made that, relative position strength, you're probably getting a lot of value by taking one of those 3 guys as opposed to anybody else that comes after those 3 guys. So I'm not a guy that usually wants a tight end in the first round either, but I'm not going to knock anybody for taking a Kelce, an Ertz, or a Kittle because a lot of the drafts I've been in by round 4, all 3 of those guys are gone.
All right, let's get ready to start the break. I'm going to try to go through the first 4 rounds, get you a good snapshot of how these teams started. The Turnbull team starts Barkley, Jacobs, the rookie running back from Oakland, Steph Diggs, and James White. So he's got 3 backs and Steph Diggs. I don't mind it at all. My only question is when Jacobs was taken, Leonard Fournette, Aaron Jones, no problem with Jacobs was taken. That's about where he goes. Then he came back in the 3rd with Diggs and White. I don't see no problem with that. A decent start. I like the relying on the rookie running back as the RB2. You know what you're going to get with Jimmy White when he's healthy, and Saquon Barkley's a stud. Steph Diggs also very good. No problem with this start, Ben.
What as Jacobs ADP climbed into the top 25 right now? Because I mean he got him on the way back in the second round. So what is it? 14 teams, so 28. So is he a top 30 pick this year already?
He's creeping up towards that top 30 number. I think what happened here was, so many running backs went so early where now you're making a decision Turnbull made a decision between him and Leonard Fournette. He needed a wide receiver. He was looking at Fournette. Yeah, he was looking at Fournette. He was looking at Fournette or Jacobs to be that back. That's kind of what's in that range. If I have Saquon Barkley already, give me the safety. I'm about to say the safety of Leonard Fournette. Give me the bounce back ability of Leonard Fournette over the unknown and Jacobs with the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest thing he's looking at right there is like injury, right? Like, I mean, because again, Fournette, a healthy Leonard Fournette gets 20-plus touches a game. Like, that's just the way that offense has ran ever since he's been there is they just feed him and feed him and feed him until the game is either out of reach and they have to start passing the ball or until the clock, clicks out. I mean, that's basically the way that the Jacksonville offense has been. So really the big thing with Fournette is how you feel if he can stay healthy because every year he seems to be getting hurt. But I don't know. I mean, what are you expecting out of Jacobs? I mean, because, again, we went through the team wins the other day. We don't expect the Raiders to be a very good team. So we're not expecting them to be winning and feeding a running back to run out the clock all that often. So what are you really looking at for this guy? Are you looking at –
And, Benny, you hit the nail on the head. Is he going to be a dominant pass catcher out the backfield if they're playing catch-up? They have Antonio Brown on that team.
They have Jalen Richard out of the backfield who can do that. That's exactly what his role is, You're
100% correct on that, too. When you're drafting Josh Jacobs, you're taking a shot on a dude that's a starting running back.
But here's the question I'll ask is if we agree that, Jalen Richard is probably going to play that third down role, and we agree that they're probably going to be trailing in most of their games or at least more than half of their games this season, is Josh Jacobs – basically a poor man's Sony Michel?
Yeah, real poor man's Sony Michel.
And if so, then why is he going ahead of him in drafts?
Exactly. Why not take Sony Michel in that spot right there? And I'm glad you mentioned that name because I don't see where Sony Michel went.
4th round. He was taken right before whoever you just mentioned, before Turnbull took James White coming on the way back in the 4th round. Both of the New England running backs, 4th round picks.
Yeah, that right there. It looks like some of these dudes were doing their homework because Sony Michel should have definitely been up there. You look at the backs that went before Michel: Aaron Jones, Kerryon Johnson, Derrick Henry, Devontae Freeman, Kenyon Drake. That's interesting right there, and that's a good point. A good catch by you, Benny. He should have been that guy that went somewhere closer to that range right there. So yeah, good call right there on that one. The second team, Zwillinger, Kamara, Thielen, Fournette, Hill. Could have a steal with Tyreek Hill.
So much upside on this team.
Kamara, Fournette in the backfield. The LSU and Tennessee backfield. His 5th round pick was actually Patrick Mahomes. So I look at his start, Benny, and I'm thinking, okay, I can get behind this team.
Oh, absolutely. I think he had an amazing start to this draft. Listen, when you're drafting here, you're trying to win, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, even if he loses Tyreek Hill for a few weeks, all right, whatever. Leonard Fournette might get hurt during the season at some point. Fine. But if these guys stay healthy, he legit has 2 top 10 backs in Kamara and Leonard Fournette. And he has 2 guys that could end up being top 10 receivers in Thielen and Tyreek Hill. That's a hell of a way to get through the first 4 rounds of a draft.
Yeah, the only thing that I would say looking at the rest of his draft, if I take this gamble on Hill, that means I'm waiting on my quarterback. And because you see, that's the thing right there, because you're going to need that you're going to need that spot.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at the rest of his wide receivers after Hill, it's Christian Kirk, Mohamed Sanu, and Paris Campbell.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're going to have to get through the first couple weeks of the season. So I don't know if you saw this yesterday, but we might as well talk about it now because it was kind of big news. RotoWire kind of tweeted it out. Hill met yesterday with the league offices, and according to quote-unquote sources inside the Chiefs, the maximum amount of suspension that he's going to get is going to be 4 games, and that's the maximum that they're thinking. So, I mean, he could walk away with a 2-game suspension or something like that and, be playing football in September still.
Yeah, tied to people that's best balling, that's getting Tyreek Hill at that value a couple of weeks and months ago, that could pay off, especially if you put some dollars behind that early. Tim Jensen's team starts Christian McCaffrey, Keenan Allen, George Kittle, Chris Carson. Not a bad start. Good flexibility on this team. Mm-hmm. McCaffrey, Carson in the backfield, Allen the wide receiver 1, Kittle is a tight end. I'm not in love with it, mainly because of the Carson pick.
See, this is another one that –
more like a team that has a tight end taken this early.
This is another one that RotoWire actually had a note about yesterday with Carson. And it wasn't a note that I really liked as somebody who took Penny in that league draft that we did for Fantasy Guru. Basically what they're saying is that, the Seattle is looking to go with like the hot hand theory, which is kind of what we talked about with Seattle. Is it's always tough to know who the lead dog always winds up putting up a big game, but it's always somebody different, like last year it was Mike Davis sometimes, it was Carson sometimes. Like it felt like they just run, like the running back position in Seattle is kind of interchangeable. So, I mean, listen, Carson is still coming back from injury. He's not 100% yet, and, I don't think he's been working out at OTAs either. They expect him to be ready for the start of the year, but, with him and Penny there, I think both of these guys are going to get some touches. I like it a lot better for best ball because I think they're both going to have some big weeks, but I don't think they're both going to be consistently having big weeks.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Listen, like my thing is you want to bank on somebody in Seattle, make it Russell Wilson. Other than that, Doug Baldwin not there no more from years past, so it's going to be difficult to get a beat on that offense. But one thing that you do know is that Russell Wilson is going to control and dominate the narrative, running, passing, scoring touchdowns. That's his thing. I like Tyler Lockett also. Carson is a wait-and-see approach for me as we get past training camp, like you said. More of a best ball type thing. Moving on, my man Steve Gardner. He starts with Ezekiel Elliott. Then he goes 3 straight wides. T.Y. Hilton, Brandon Cooks, and Sammy Watkins. 4-round start. You probably got the dude that can lead the NFL in rushing. You can probably have a top 5 wide receiver in Hilton. Mm-hmm. Watkins and Cooks are the same player. They're both inconsistent. But in a 14-team league, I don't mind this start right here.
So this lineup is one that strikes me as – I don't know about the consistency of it, but there's going to be a week where T.Y., Cooks, and Watkins all have big games, and this guy's going to put up like a 200-something score one week. But then there's also going to be that week where Sammy Watkins has 2 catches for 14 yards, and T.Y. Hilton has a bad game, or Brandon Cooks doesn't get the targets that he deserves. I feel like this is a very high risk, high reward kind of lineup where this is the kind of team that's like the team when all their threes are dropping, they can beat anybody in the country. But when they're missing their shots, which is going to happen on occasion, they're not going to be very good. So I feel like there's a lot of variability with this team. But the good thing is you have guys like Andrew Luck and Ezekiel Elliott who are going to be, solid, carry your team every week. So the wide receivers, I think, are very boom or bust, but I do like the way that he started.
Nice. I can get behind it. When you look at the rest of the draft, who's that RB2 going to be? Dion Lewis, LaShawn McCoy on this team. A breakout year from Chris Thompson could help him out a lot also. But decent start, but like you said, it's going to be weeks where you're going to see some inconsistent play out of guys like Watkins and Cooks. But for the most part, solid effort in the 14-team league. When you look at Greg and Tom, David Johnson, Mike Evans, Aaron Jones, Tyler Lockett, solid balance right here on this start right here, Benny. I'm not the biggest Aaron Jones guy, and I would have waited. I would have took a different running back than Bell, but with Evans, Lockett, and Williams, a player that I like, that I continue to like a lot. I think, they got Williams in the 5th round actually, but that start right there from Greg and Tom, not the way I would have carried it, but it's kind of like, okay, if these guys do what they're supposed to do outside of Aaron Jones, they'll be in good shape.
I like their team from top to bottom more than I like their first couple picks, if that makes sense to me.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like you look further on down the road. Like I feel like they did a really good job in the later rounds. They got, they took Baker Mayfield in the 5th or in the 6th. They got Dante Pettis, who's a guy that I'm kind of high on.
Pettis.
Yeah, I like Pettis too. You got Foreman, Peterson, and Duke Johnson. So they did good with getting that running back depth in there in the later rounds, guys that could step in. I just don't feel like they got enough. I don't feel like the top 5 picks that they got there are enough to carry your team. You know what I'm saying? Like this is more of a well-rounded team top to bottom that finishes, with like a 4 or 5 spot in the playoffs.
I can see that, yeah, and mainly because of what they did later on. Another good pick for them later on was Dallas Goedert. I keep telling y'all Dallas Goedert is going to be a part of that Eagle offense this year. Zach Ertz getting two 16-game seasons out of Zach Ertz is highly unlikely in my opinion. Let me go to my man, Rotoballer Ralph, Lev Bell, Antonio Brown, AJ Green, Sony Michel. He nailed it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he had a really good draft to me. Like you start out with Le'Veon Bell and Sony Michel in your backfield, and then you have Antonio Brown and AJ Green on the outside. No complaints whatsoever for me. I think he did a really good job at the top of the draft.
Penny and Freeman also on this team with David Njoku. Interesting pick. This is interesting. A guy that I love, always have, and I've been on fantasy teams. He has a spot in my locker room every year. And that's Emmanuel Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm cutting ties with Emmanuel Sanders now.
I mean, listen, this is kind of what Denver was moving towards anyway, right? You went and got Cortland Sutton to be your main receiver. You got rid of Demaryius Thomas. I mean, I still think Sanders is going to play a role, but I don't think the role is going to be as big as it's been in the past.
Yeah, coming off that injury, that Achilles is not good for football players. Coming off that injury, Joe Flacco, the once elite Joe Flacco.
Yo, that's my fellow blue hen from the University of Delaware, right? Stop cracking on him.
Yo, boy, really, I'm the biggest Joe Flacco fan there is, but a lot of people, I defended Joe Flacco for many years, and now people are reminding me, remember, you would have got to defend Joe Flacco. But the same thing you want to say about Joe Flacco. Tell me a quarterback who has gone into New England, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, and Denver, beaten on the road wins versus Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, and Andrew Luck.
There aren't many, if any, other ones on that list.
Road wins against those teams in January, and that's just the truth of the matter. Say what you want to say about Joe Flacco, he did that. What do you think? You like the Rotoballer team?
Yeah, I really like the way he started it off. Now, again, I like the way that the NFFC guys played rounds 6 through 14, probably more than I like the way that Ralph played those rounds. But I think he got a much stronger start to the draft, where he's got a better foundation to build on, where he doesn't need those guys. He doesn't need all those guys to hit in the later rounds, because I think that his foundation at the beginning is strong enough that that's going to carry your team to victory in a lot of weeks.
Yeah, I like it too. I think they did a good job. Might be the leader in the pack right now. You look at the Bonini brothers from the huddle. Melvin Gordon, Marlon Mack, a double running back start. They come back with Amari Cooper and Chris Godwin. I'm curious to see who was on the board when they took Chris Godwin. Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, I was about to do the same thing because that pick to me feels like a reach. They could have had Lockett, Watkins, Tyreek Hill, Will Fuller, Alshon Jeffries. It's basically everything to the left of that in round 4, then everything below it. Tyler Boyd, Corey Davis. I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking with Chris Goodwin. I mean, again, you also have to understand some of these guys in some of these drafts, like if they have a strong take that they're trying to, push out there for their brand or something like that. Some of these expert drafts are the places where they take that strong take to just kind of make that, kind of announce that with authority. You know what I mean? I mean, again, I don't hate Chris Godwin, but I don't see him as a 4th-round pick.
Listen, I'm not the biggest Tyler Lockett guy. I definitely would have took Tyler Lockett over him. Obviously, I had a long love affair with Tammy Watkins. Guys like Mike Williams, even though I don't know if you want Mike Will as your wide receiver too, but I damn sure don't want Godwin as my wide receiver too. He plays an offense with Mike Evans. You know what I'm saying? And listen, Arians should be able to bring that whole game up. If I'm not mistaken, Godwin was who had did Godwin play better with Fitzpatrick or did Humphreys play better with Fitzpatrick?
I don't remember, but the thing I remember last year about Chris Godwin, to be honest, is Deshaun Jackson was their wide receiver between the 20s. Godwin was their wide receiver when they got inside the 20. He was the touchdown, he was the other touchdown guy that they put opposite Mike Evans. And that was really his thing. It's like, he was kind of like he was a lower volume guy, but he had the touchdown upside. Like I said, I mean, 4th round, you're talking – he got him in the middle of the 4th round. So you're probably talking top 50 picks. I don't have him rated that high. I mean, I like him. I'm not saying he's a bad pick. I just think he's a bad pick in that spot.
Yeah, he also has on this team the Bonini brothers also have on this team Jarvis Landry, who we talked about could struggle. Landry would have to be in his starting lineup. Eric Ebron is a pick that I like. Eckler, Melvin Gordon, that's a smart. You buy the insurance policy. The Justice Hill pick, the Baltimore running back, Justice Hill, I think that's an interesting pick also because Hill's a guy that's going to get some playing time this year. Going to be interesting to see what he does. When you kind of look at the rest of it, the quarterback combination of Breeze and Cousins, I don't mind the late round shot on Josh Gordon. Jesus Christ. Solid all around. Looks like it could be a playoff team. The Godwin pick might be something that they look back and say that messed my draft up.
Well, I mean, if you look at that team, though, who's the only other wide receiver they have is Josh Gordon, right?
Yeah. Oh, wow. You're right.
So that's my problem with this whole thing is the only other wide receiver you have in your roster is Josh Gordon. And I don't know what is this like a start 2 wide receivers and then have like a super flex or something like that? Because I feel like they went crazy heavy on running backs. And
3 wide receivers start.
Yeah, so I mean, if you get one guy hurt there, you don't even have enough to start guys on a bye week. You're gonna have to go make some moves right there. That's the only problem I have with it is they took 6 running backs and they only took 4 wide receivers.
Roster construction is very important in these drafts. It may be even more important than the players you have on these teams. Certain players don't fit well on certain teams. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you're drafting Tyreek Hill, you need to load up on wide receivers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you got to get through those weeks without it. That's what I'm saying. So, like, you look at this team right now. I mean, again, Josh Gordon, we don't even know if Josh Gordon is going to play. So, if Josh Gordon doesn't play, you only have 3 wide receivers. You can't even cover yourself on a bye week.
Interesting. Obviously, they'll play it out and then see what happens, throughout the course of, free agency. But you want to come out the draft in a better spot than that, in my opinion. You look at the Crown League, started off with D-Hop and Julio Jones. That's an excellent start right there. Next gets his 2 running backs, Kerryon Johnson and Tariq Cohen. I am a fan of both of those players right there. Let me check what was on the board. When Kerryon was taken, I probably would have took Mark Ingram, to be honest with you. And then when Cohen was taken, I probably would have took Sony Michel. But I don't have a problem with a Johnson-Cohen backfield. You look at his 5th round pick, it was Tyler Boyd. In the 6th round, he goes with Aaron Rodgers. Round 7, Benny, Ito Smith, that could be a reach right there. But the Crown League team comes out pretty strong. Julio D-Hop, carry on Tariq Cohen, not bad.
Yeah, but I mean, my problem is I felt the same way you did. Is where he took Kerryon Johnson, you still had Derrick Henry, Devonta Freeman, Kenyon Drake, and Mark Ingram on the board too. I would have taken Ingram there. And then on the way back where he took Tariq Cohen. Now, again, Tariq Cohen was a guy that I wound up with in the Fantasy Guru League. But Lindsey went right before him. And then he took Cohen, and then Sony Michel went right after him. In our league over at Fantasy Guru, Lindsey and Michelle were the two picks right before I took Cohen. You took one of them, and then I think Thad took the other one. But that was the way that I had it rated, with Cohen being behind both of those guys. So I would always take Philip Lindsay or Sony Michel before I took Tariq Cohen. If I had to guess between those two, I'd probably put Michel, Lindsay, Cohen would be the order for me.
Yeah, and like you said, Cohen's game is dynamic. Don't get me wrong. But, you can kind of scheme Cohen out the game. And then you got to also remember the fact that Mitch Trubisky is their quarterback. I'm not sold on Mitch Trubisky 100% just yet. But that's still it's still a good start. I have no problem. When you look at the rest of the team, they did roster construction properly. The Ito Smith thing is interesting, but they got Jalen Samuels, Jerick McKinnon, Hollywood Brown, Adam Humphries.
Right.
They had a strong draft going down the stretch. You get Jimmy Graham in the last round. That's crazy.
Yeah, and Jack Doyle in the 13th, too. He waited deep on tight end, and he wound up coming away with two guys that I don't hate.
Yeah, exactly. And then Jamal Williams on this team also. Solid, Benny. Solid. Solid. Like I said, yeah. I think he could have nailed those two running backs better in the middle. But other than that, I don't see nothing wrong with this team.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the running back thing, everybody has different opinions when you get down to, you're probably talking about running backs 15 to 20 right around there. So everyone's going to have different opinions. I would have taken different guys, but the guys that he took weren't out of the range of where they're going. So I'm not going to knock him if he likes them better.
Up next is Lisa Ann representing SiriusXM Fantasy. Her start, Odell Beckham, Zach Ertz, Derrick Henry, Cooper Kupp. You come out of the first 4 rounds with one running back, and that one running back is Derrick Henry. That's dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the same thing. And now, again, if I'm coming out of the first 4 rounds with only one running back, I'm doing it because I have 3 stud wide receivers. That's the way that I would have wound up. Odell Beckham is a stud. Zach Ertz is the number 1 tight end. So, I mean, if you come out with 2 stud wide receivers and Ertz, I'm fine.
Yeah, a stud pass catcher.
Yeah, again, I don't know.
Roster construction.
My biggest problem here is you got a lot of question marks at running back, right? Derrick Henry, we've seen him have big games, but we don't know if he can ever be consistent. You know what I'm saying? Lamar Miller is a guy that he's just a guy. You know what I'm saying? He's a starting running back, so I understand why you take him, but there's no upside with Lamar Miller. We've seen that. Honestly, I think I would probably wind up playing Tevin Coleman more than I play Lamar Miller this year.
You might play Tevin Coleman more than you play Derrick Henry.
Not even going to argue that fact either, but that's what I'm saying is, I just don't love – I don't love the running backs. That's really my beef with this team.
Yeah, the running backs, I have a problem with the running backs too. I don't get me wrong, I like the Coleman pick, especially the value on Coleman. That's the saving grace for this team right here. Mike Davis in Chicago should get his looks and catch the football a little bit too. Gus Edwards, that Baltimore backfield is a pain in the ass. We already know that. You want to believe in the resurgent Randall Cobb in Dallas, but Randall Cobb is going to be hurt. The wide receivers, it can be put together with Moncrief Tate as a PPR guy. Big Ben, Trubisky, Ted Ginn Jr., is kind of a 0 at this point. I think he's seen his best. Team will be led by Beckham and Ertz, though. The Cooper Kupp, it's not a bad team. I don't like the roster construction. I've struggled with the running backs on this team. The bottom line is this. When you draft a tight end or a quarterback in that first 4 rounds, you have to really know what you're doing to pull it off. And I don't know if this team right here is strong enough to pull it off.
The one thing I will say that she did that I like, she waited like I usually do until round 12 to draft a quarterback.
Yeah.
And she got Ben Roethlisberger. So for everybody out there who's running up oh, my God, Mahomes is off the board. I have to go get Andrew Luck, or I have to go get this guy. I have to go get that guy. Round 12, she got Ben Roethlisberger. Just think about that. Roethlisberger is a guy who finishes with, 250, 300 yards a game every season. He's going to throw, 25, 35 touchdown passes. That's the kind of guy you can get in round 12. So you don't have to reach for quarterbacks in these drafts.
Yeah, no doubt. There's no reason to do that at all. Next, the always. I tell you what, when you look on draft day, you look at Colton and the Wolfman team, and you're like, don't like it. And then at the end of the season, you check back in on the league, and you're like, oh, shit, they're in second place. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. They have a theory that they do every year. They take 3 running backs to start a draft.
Yep. Every single year.
Every single year. I forgot what they call it. They have a name for it. They call it something. And they're 3 backs. They take 3 backs to start every year. This year, the 3 backs, they started with a James Conner, Dalvin Cook, and Devontae Freeman. Freeman in the third, but it's a 14-team league, too. Take that into consideration. So it's not terrible. I don't mind it, Benny. I don't mind a 3 running back start. The wide receiver one is Allen Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, again, they kind of go a little bit cheaper at wide receiver. They got Allen Robinson, Corey Davis, and then they're looking for a third guy between, they got Demaryius Thomas, Marquise Goodwin, D.D. Westbrook, Tyrell Williams. They're really going to need one of those guys to kind of hit. But I guess the theory with the 3 running backs, especially in a league that uses a flex, is you're going to start all 3 of those guys every week anyway. And even if one of them gets hurt, you're still going to finish your season having 2 starting big-time kind of running backs unless everyone gets hurt. But if you have 2 starting running backs in the first 3 rounds get hurt, you're not winning your league anyway. So it's something they've done a lot, and it's something that's actually worked out for them. I don't mind it. I mean, going heavy on running back, you take care of that position early, and then you got the rest of the draft to kind of fill in the needs at the other spots. So
yeah, the wide receivers came out very pedestrian. But what do you think of Allen Robinson, Benny?
I think it's more a fact of I like him as a player, but I don't like his role on the team that he's in.
Yeah.
And for fantasy production, Like, I like the fact that they spread the ball around so everybody gets to touch it. But when you're talking fantasy, I don't want the ball to be spread around, I want
Allen Robinson to get 9 targets.
I don't want democracy. I don't want socialism in my fantasy team. I want a dictator. I want a ball hog. I want one guy getting all the touches. That's what I want on my fantasy team.
I agree with you. I think we have mixed opinions on Corey Davis. I'm a little bit scared off. I don't like the Mariota situation. You're into Davis more than I am. Jared Cook, we've talked about a million times. Not a bad pick at all with Jared Cook. Maybe a little early, but not a bad pick. But, that might be for somebody else. D.D. Westbrook is a wide receiver I've always liked. But you'll get 2 or 3 games out of D.D. Westbrook, and then other than that, you're going to be scratching your head. Tyrell Williams, you're looking for a big play. The Matt Ryan, Dak Prescott quarterback combo is fine, but really it's the 3 backs at the top that have carried this team.
Yeah, is this a best ball strategy? I don't know the rules.
You play this out.
Yeah, like if this isn't best ball, that's tough, man. Because there are a couple guys in this team who, like, trying to pick which receivers you want to start every week is going to be tough for this team. Allen Robinson, Corey Davis are probably going to start every week, but between Westbrook, Tyrell Williams, Marquise Goodwin, those are 3 guys that have the potential to have, like, big, long touchdowns. You're going to have a lot of those, like, those weeks where you make the wrong choice on which one of those guys to play, and you got a guy on your bench that, catches a 70-yard touchdown pass.
Yep. Interesting. And you're right. There's going to be a lot of weeks where there's going to be points on the bench. Go to wire, Chris Liss. Liss always does a great job. Well, everybody's zigging. Liss is zagging. He starts Devontae Adams, Juju Smith-Schuster, which is excellent. Kenyon Drake and Phil Lindsay. Man, Mark Ingram was sitting right there. He puts Mark Ingram on this team right here, Benny, that he wins the first 4 rounds.
Yeah, I honestly, I think you could have, because he was the only one. Well, no, I mean, Nando would have taken, like, if he liked Drake more than Lindsay and he took Mark Ingram instead of Drake, Nando might have taken Lindsay instead of Drake, and you could have wound up with Ingram and Drake if those were your 2 favorites. But listen, I'm not gonna get too credit. I mean, that's like little nitpicky stuff, to be honest with you. Devontae Adams, Juju Smith-Schuster, I think is a really nice start to a draft. He basically needs these running backs to put up the seasons. He needs these running backs to put up their ceiling seasons, right? Like, he needs Phillip Lindsay to do what he did last year, and he needs Kenyon Drake without Adam Gase to finally prove to everybody that. I mean, to me, he was the best running back in Miami anyway, but hopefully he gets a chance to prove it to everybody else this year.
Good job by List on his roster construction. He gets O.J. Howard, Mark Andrews, Darrell Henderson, the running back that could be the man in with the Rams, depending on the situation with Gurley. Sterling Shepard to be his wide receiver 3. That's an excellent spot right there, especially where he got him. Devin Funches. A lot of people in India are talking about Devin Funches. Naheem Hines and Jalen Richard. Jalen Richard, that pass-catching back in Oakland that goes on the radar. Waits long for his quarterbacks, comes away with Tyler Murray and Josh Allen. He's got the best team.
Yeah, I like it. And for a lot of people out there, guys like Naeem Hines and Jalen Richard, what do you get them in, like rounds 9, 10, something like that? Those are good guys. If you're trying to save at running back and go like wide receiver or tight end heavy early in a draft, those are good guys to add to your team, because with the PPR and if guys get injured or stuff, there's a lot of upside with those two guys for a 9th or 10th round draft pick.
At one point last season, Jalen Richard had 29% of the targets on the Raiders.
Dude, at one point last season, Naeem Hines had like 2 or 3 games in a row with double-digit targets. So that's what I'm saying is, like, in a PPR setting, these are the kind of guys that, somebody gets hurt and you have to plug them in. There are worse guys to plug in. These are guys that can still put up 10 or 15 fantasy points in, rather unusual ways for you too with the pass catching.
You go to Howard Bender and Fantasy Alarm. They start Joe Mixon, Nick Chubb. Go back-to-back running backs. I like that running back start right there. They come back in the 3rd. The pick is DJ Moore. Come back in 4 with Calvin Ridley. Oh, man. Listen, you can't be strong across the board in the 14-team league. I'm looking at the DJ Moore pick, and I'm like, what? Yeah, I don't understand the DJ Moore pick. I get the Ridley pick. I don't understand the Moore pick when you had Edelman and Galladay and Robert Woods on the board.
That's exactly what I'm shaking my head about too. Is the DJ Moore pick to me? I just feel like he reached way too much. I actually like Calvin Ridley more than I like DJ Moore.
Yeah, I agree.
And he took Ridley the next round, but he gave up Julian Edelman, Robert Woods, and Kenny Galladay to get there. Like Robert Woods, Kenny Galladay, I would have easily taken them before DJ Moore.
Yeah, and I don't think Moore's going to be bad. I just think he's drafted a little bit too high, even in this 14-team league right here. You look at the rest of Bender's team. Hunter Henry, I like. The David Montgomery pick is good. He'll probably be in your starting lineup. We've discussed James Washington many times on this program right here. I'm a James Washington supporter. He should be that wide receiver 3. And Kill Harry, tell me a Patriot rookie wide receiver that's done a good job.
Tell me a Patriot wide receiver since – that isn't a slot guy that's done a good job.
No, it's like the young wide receivers don't work in Indianapolis. The system, in New England, the system is too hard to catch on. He's being overdrafted. Be very careful when in Kill Harry. Trey Quinn in D.C. I can't draft a D.C. wide receiver. If I do, it's going to be a shot on Crowder a little bit later on. Quarterbacks, Jared Goff and Phil Rivers. Travion Williams, interesting pick right there with Travion. That's not Travion Williams from Friday Night Lights, is it? That kid can't be that old already.
I don't know, to be honest with you.
You don't watch Friday Night Lights? Okay.
No, I never have.
Yeah, okay. Not Friday Night Lights, Friday Night Tights. Yeah, that young man can't be that age.
You know what? I found out yesterday that the Beastie Boys' License to Ill album is 25 years old. So, maybe we're getting along here in age, Corey. We've been around a little bit.
Earlier this week, Reasonable Doubt was like 26 years old. And I'm like, Reasonable Doubt feel like it just came out. I remember going to the Reasonable Doubt album release party.
You want to know what's funny? I have both of those albums on my phone right now, Reasonable Doubt and License to Ill. So
there you go.
I'm aging myself right now. That was when I was in like high school, man. I was like 13.
Oh, son, it was great. I legit remember going to the album release party for Reasonable Doubt at the Copa on 59th Street. You know what I'm saying? I went to that joint by myself, as a matter of fact.
Well, you should, man. There's probably a lot of girls at that one.
Oh, we had a good time, son. I've never seen anything like that. That was like the first. I was in an environment with people like Diddy was in there with his bodyguards, was like standing like right next to me, and Lost Boys was right there. I'm like, oh, this is crazy, son. I forgot who told me about that. I knew somebody that knew somebody. I was able to get me in that joint, but it went down. It didn't go down, but it was just cool event to be in. So that's Howard Bender. Next is my man Mike Clay from ESPN. His first 4: Travis Kelce, Todd Gurley, Julian Edelman, Robert Woods. I don't know what I think about this, to be honest with you.
If Gurley's healthy and not hurt, that's a really strong start to the draft.
Yeah, you're right. I can't. You're right.
The problem is if Gurley's not healthy, the rest of his running backs are Darius Geis, Carlos Hyde, who is also a health concern, Matt Breida, who I don't know. I mean, there are like 5 running backs on San Francisco that people are taking right now. Some of these guys aren't going to make the team. And then Giovanni Bernard and Darwin Thompson are his other running backs. So if Gurley's not okay, like he's putting a lot of eggs in the basket of a guy who's got a gimpy knee that most people aren't expecting to make it through the season without problems. If Gurley's knee is not okay, this team kind of falls apart because you just don't have any talent at running back.
You got Gurley with the knee. You got Geis coming off a ACL tear. You got Carlos Hyde that may not ever carry the football. You know what I'm saying?
That's the problem that I have is that you got there's a lot of question marks here there's a lot of injury question marks here. So I guess he's thinking he got value. Like, again, Todd Gurley, if Todd Gurley doesn't have the knee issue, Todd Gurley's a top 3 pick.
And that's the thing. The type of draft that I've worked with Mike Clay, I worked with Mike Clay closely before. I know Mike Clay's thinking Mike Clay is going to draft based on the value. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. His thought process is I can load up at other spots, take this value at running back, and if this running back is healthy and hits, then I'm the best team in this league.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is this is a high-risk, high-reward kind of strategy that I'm not going to knock him for doing it. I'm just saying there's a lot of – I mean, you look at the wide receivers that he has in his team. I love his wide receivers.
Wide receivers are excellent outside of Metcalf.
Julian – but again, I mean, DK Metcalf is his 6th wide receiver. I'll take DK Metcalf as my wide receiver 6. I mean, he's got Edelman, Woods, Robbie Anderson, Marvin Jones, Kiki Kuti.
Excellent.
5 guys that have a lot of upside right there. So I like that a lot.
I can't hustle. Quarterback is Cam Newton. Mm-hmm. Kelsey. This is a great team. It's on the health of Gurley.
And again, to go with the weight on quarterback thing, he got Cam Newton in the 11th round.
Yep.
You know, I mean, that's why I said you don't have to –
Of a 14-team league.
Of a 14-teamer, yeah. So you're talking pick like 150. So you got guys like Cam Newton and Ben Roethlisberger going with the 150 to the 160th pick in some of these drafts.
And now we get to Team DeFino of The Athletic. And I'm looking at this team, Benny, and I'm like, who drafted this team? Was I at the FSTA last night? It's Geronimo Allison, Damian Williams, Evan Ingram, you know what I'm saying? Sam Darnold, another one of the people I like a lot. Mike Sanders, that's Jake Seeley pick right there. Let's go. Mike Thomas, Damian Williams, Mark Ingram as the first 4. The first 3. And then Kenny Golladay comes back in the 4th with Kenny Golladay. Thomas and Golladay, Williams and Ingram. I love it.
Yeah, I love the first 4 picks here. I mean, Mike Thomas is a guy who I'm really high on. Damian Williams is a guy I know you're really high on, and I understand why. Again, we were both already talked about how we thought Mark Ingram should have went a little bit earlier over some of those other guys drafted. And then Kenny Golladay is another guy I think has a lot of upside and I love. So like the way that our boy Nando started this off.
Miles Sanders, I'm sure that was a Jake Seeley pick right there. Jake Seeley's banging the drum for Miles Sanders, the rookie running back in Philadelphia. I don't know if I'm banging the drum for him.
I'm not banging the drum for him, I'll say it, but I know there are a lot of people that are high on him. I mean, listen, I'm going to stick with what I've always said with Philly, right? There's more than one running back in that stable, and they've always shown that they've been more than willing to use more than one running back. So, again, he was a 5th-round pick? I mean, who could you have gotten instead of him at that point? Because they were coming this way, so you couldn't have gotten Geis. So it would have been, Miles Sanders over Darrell Henderson, Tevin Coleman, Jordan Howard. Yeah, I would have probably went Tevin Coleman myself too. Again, though, it's interesting to see Jordan Howard go in the next round as well. What are you looking at for the carry distribution between guys like Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders? I guess Jake's thought is that Sanders is going to beat out Howard for the lead role.
Well, here's the thing. I've worked with Jake for a long time. I love Jake. You know what I'm saying? Jake is the type of analyst where he's going to latch on to a rookie running back and pump that running back at you right or wrong. You know what I'm saying? If it's Ronald Jones or whoever it is that or has been over the years, When
Yep.
Jake locks his teeth into something, he does not let it go. He's locked his teeth into Sanders, and he's basically trying to prove a point where I'm taking him here because this is what he's going to do. I don't have the track record of how this works. Obviously, Jake is the ranking savant, but this is a Jake Seeley theory right here of locking his teeth into a player, a rookie running back, and he's going to go all the way out with it.
I mean, listen, Phillies are going to be a good spot for running backs. Again, my biggest problem is, and apparently who took Jordan Howard? And the Bonini brothers, I guess, kind of agree with me because they took Jordan Howard a couple picks later. I don't think either one of these guys ends up with a workhorse kind of role. I think that they're both going to take carries from each other. So you're basically looking at a early season Tennessee situation from last year with Deion Lewis and Derrick Henry where, neither one of these guys is going to wind up getting, 15 to 20 touches. So, again, I mean, in the fifth round, it's okay, but there are other guys that I like better.
Like this, with Sanders and Howard, can either one of those two backs be a top 30 running back?
I don't think so unless one of them gets hurt because I think they're going to split a lot of the usage. And I would rather take a guy like, I'd rather have a Tevin Coleman in that situation right there because Tevin Coleman could end up being the lead back in San Francisco and he's going to catch passes. Like maybe Miles Sanders is going to be their pass catcher too. But you look at the stable of running backs that they have, they're going to do it like New England does where everybody kind of has a role and everybody has a lane. And I don't want guys like that for fantasy. I want guys who can, again, democracy is great unless when you're talking about fantasy football and distribution of targets and touches. I don't want guys that are only going to get 10, 12 touches a game. You can get that guy. You can get a 10, 12 touch a game guy in round 12 or 13.
No doubt. Evan Ingram is a tight end. Evan Ingram numbers should be pretty good this year. Evan Ingram is a player that you can see is clearly benefits with Odell Beckham not being on the field. Geronimo Allison was probably going to finish top 25 if he didn't get hurt last year. The Allison pick, Benny, I know you're on Allison. I'm on Allison. I'm with Jake for long enough to know that Jake's on Allison. Deshaun Jackson, I don't understand, but I'll probably holler at Jake and see what his thoughts is on Deshaun Jackson. What do you think of D Jax?
I mean, I like D Jax, but I don't he's not a guy that I'm really looking to go and get in fantasy, I mean, there are other pass catchers and other options on Philly. He's going to be the main receiver on Philly is Zach Ertz. Mm-hmm. Everybody else gets a handful of targets, 5 targets. So in a best ball situation, I'm fine with Deshaun Jackson because he's going to have that game where he catches the 70-yard bomb for a touchdown. But it's not a guy I want to count on every week. Like I don't think the volume is going to be there for him.
No, exactly. As long as I put him in the starting lineup, it's decent. Deshaun Hamilton take a swing in Denver. I like the Deebo Samuel pick also. Devin Singletary. Sam Darnold is the only quarterback on this team.
Well, I mean, that's a problem right there because you're going to have to make a move at some point during the season to get another guy. But again, they took Sam Darnold in 15th round? 14th round. You know who went in the 15th round?
Who?
3 picks away from each other, Tom Brady and Derek Carr.
There you go right there. There's plenty of quarterbacks out there to be had. I don't know if Darnold was the guy that I would go with, but I put it like this. Sam Darnold can be a backup on any one of my teams. That is basically the FSGA Industry Experts Draft. Don't forget fantasyguru.com. Fantasy football draft kit is live and lit right now. Content is out there. Matter of fact, it's going to start picking up as I know as soon as we get past the 4th of July, I'll be hopping in there doing the podcasts and stuff like that, Benny. And I'm quite sure you got some stuff coming down the pipeline too.
I think I'm slated. I think I'm slated to do a bunch of the DFS stuff for the package and all that stuff. So you'll see a lot of my DFS thoughts in there as well.
No doubt about it. There you go. All right, let me get back over to this side right here. Time for Prize Picks, myprizepicks.com. Promo code is ELITE. Benny, what do we have going down today that is of interest to you?
Yeah, so I mean, I was looking at the MLB stuff today because all the games are tonight, so it's basically the night slate. There's a lot of these guys here that don't make sense. Like, I wouldn't use Trey Mancini against Clevenger. I wouldn't use Alonso against Soroka. I wouldn't use Acuna against DeGrom. So there's only like 3 or 4 guys that made sense to me here. So I like Vlad Jr. going up against Danny Duffy. You get the righty going up against the lefty and Duffy right there. So Vlad Jr. is somebody that I'm looking at. Whit Merrifield against Sean Reed Foley for the Toronto Blue Jays. He's a pitcher that I'm willing to pick on. Like Whit Merrifield up there. I think Whit Merrifield gets a stolen base today as well. So I like Vlad and Whit.
Wow.
Trey Turner. Trey Turner's another one today. He gets Daniel Norris. Norris, not a very good pitcher, is a lefty. Trey Turner, right-handed bat, should be able to get on base and get up in there. Those are really the three guys that I had my eye on for a 3x3. I'm debating whether or not to use Francisco Lindor and make it a 4x4. The kid who's pitching for Baltimore, John Means, he's a rookie, but he's actually arguably the best pitcher that Baltimore has.
So you touch a lot about Baltimore.
Yeah, it does, actually. And that's the thing. It's like I don't want to knock the kid. Like, the kid's actually pretty good. I don't think he's as good, but because Baltimore sucks, he's kind of like their de facto ace almost. But he is coming off the injured list, which always scares me a little bit because some guys will come off. Yeah, he was injured. He was on the DL. So some guys are going to come off the DL and be fine. They just, they wanted to give him a break. Or they do this a lot with rookie pitchers where – you just put him on the DL to give him a little break. You bring somebody else up, kind of limit his innings. So he might be fine. But if he's not fine, he could wind up getting lit up because the game is in Baltimore. So I'm debating whether or not to go 4x4 with Francisco Lindor. But if not, I like the 3x3 with Trey Turner, Whit Merrifield, and Vlad Jr.
That's myprizepicks.com, promo code ELITE. I don't know if you saw this.
So what?
If you go to the Prize Picks page, the first thing that popped up is they had Copa. I never seen them have Copa before, the Copa America.
Right.
They have Big Three.
They have Big Three basketball?
They got Big Three basketball.
One of my cousin's husband was doing like marketing stuff for the Big Three last year. Like that was his job. Like whatever company he works for. The company he works for was a company that was doing the marketing for Big Three, and that was like one of his accounts. Like he was doing a lot of the stuff with the marketing and stuff like that. So he was like all into it, and he's a basketball guy too. So I'm gonna have to hit him up and see if he's still doing that because he could probably give me some insight on who the guys are to bet on there. So we may have some Big Three news for you guys coming up in the next week.
Props for Al Jefferson, Deshaun Stevenson, Rashard Lewis, Glenn Davis, Will Bynum, Anthony Morrow, Andre Owens, Brandon Rush, Jason Richardson, Mike Bibby, Ricky Davis, and Jamario Moon. So if you're into the Big Three or you want to take a shot on the Big Three, myprizepicks.com, promo code ELITE. I actually was talking to somebody with knowledge of, sports bettings and stuff like that. I asked them why we haven't seen lines for the Big Three yet, and they were like, because we can't figure the Big Three out.
I mean, I don't figure it out either. I have no idea. I've watched it a couple times, but I haven't looked deep enough into it to really give you much insight on it. All I know is if you haven't seen Mike Bibby in the good 10 years since he's been out of the NBA, Mike Bibby is jacked. Mike Bibby is huge. Like Mike Bibby looks like a bodybuilder, man.
I know. I saw that. I wonder. I gotta. I guess it's like you said. It's FanDuel scoring. Does FanDuel carry Big Three basketball?
Not that I know of. Again, I mean, I can check, but I haven't seen it before. It hasn't been – it's not a sport that I follow, so it's not something that I'm actively looking for ways to put money on it,
No doubt. All right, Benny, what we got best bets for the night?
Best bets for tonight. So MLB, there's a couple things I wanted to mention. I like the Royals here today. I actually like the Royals a lot with Danny Duffy pitching. I think they can beat Toronto. I don't like the kid Sean Reed-Foley who's pitching for Toronto. He pitched a couple innings last year. He's a guy that doesn't go deep into games. I actually think the Royals can win this game, and they're a plus 100. So I like the Royals and Duffy tonight. Really like the Nationals again today. Made some money on them yesterday with Strasburg pitching. Like them again today going up against the Tigers. Anibal Sanchez against Daniel Norris. And then I'm going to throw a couple K-props out there for you, Corey.
Okay.
On FanDuel, you got Mike Clevenger is only 5.5. Although it is minus 200, so you're not getting great odds on it. But Clevenger should strike out more than 5 Baltimore Orioles. Orioles' highest strikeout percentage in the league against right-handed pitching, 27.3%. Clevenger, big strikeout guy. He's only pitched 3 games this year. He's on the 60-day DL, but his 3 starts this year were 7, 10, and 12 strikeouts. This is like an elite kind of strikeout pitcher. So I do like the over there. On FanDuel, it's 5.5 for minus 200, which is not a great price. On DraftKings, it's over 6.5 for minus 150. So I like him more there. Other K-prop that I really like tonight is Wade Miley, but I couldn't find the K-prop. They didn't have it up for him on either FanDuel or DraftKings today. But he's basically gone 7, 6, 5, 6, 9, and 8 strikeouts in his
What
last.
should be better than?
If I can get it at 5.5, I'd be willing to take it up to like minus 175.
Okay.
If I can get it, well, if it's 4.5, I might mortgage the house that I just bought and put it all on him, because I definitely think he gets over 5 strikeouts here today. Probably winds up somewhere between 5 and 7, which has basically been what he's been averaging over his last 6 starts. And again, like the other one, Seattle has the 3rd highest strikeout percentage against left-handed pitching in the league. So it's a really good matchup to look for strikeouts. So Wade Miley and Clevenger on the strikeout prop. And then the last thing I'm going to say today, Corey, U.S. women are plus 125 against France to win that game. The U.S. women are the favorites to win the tournament. France is a very good team. Like, if France beat the U.S., I would not be shocked here. But if you're going to give me plus money on the favorite to win the entire tournament, I'm going to take it. So I'm taking the U.S. women at plus 125 today.
I saw this U.S. women's at plus 125 thing, and I was like, oh, I got to – Benny, it's like when they raised the Warriors to plus 500.
Yep.
To me, it's like, okay, it's too good to be true.
Well, it's not. I mean, again,
you have to take the bet.
Yeah, you're at plus 125 on a team that's favored to win it. I'm going to take it. Now, remember, because this screwed me yesterday with some of the parlays I still had active, I had Brazil yesterday who won the game in penalty kicks in overtime. If the game ends 0-0 or the game ends 1-1 and goes into overtime or penalty kicks, you lose that plus 125 bet. I'm not taking them to draw no bet to win. I'm taking the U.S. women flat out to beat France and move on to the next round. That's why you're getting the plus 125 on it. Because remember, you also have to factor in the fact that if it's 0-0 or 1-1, you're going to lose your bet.
All right, there you go right there. So that is the opening line. Big piece of chicken. Shit, I don't have one for today, Benny. I'm trying to think who I can give big piece of chicken to.
Trying to think who I had last night. I'm going to give my big piece of chicken to actually the Angels' entire lineup, because they absolutely went out there and just bludgeoned everybody last night and won that bet for me. That was my big bet yesterday. I had the Angels, and I had the Angels on a lot of parlays. It was one of the ones we talked about on the show. I just thought that minus 150 number I was getting on them was a little bit too low. It should have been minus 175, minus 180. So the Angels' offense for going out there and putting up some big runs and hitting 3 or 4 home runs last night, big piece of chicken for all you guys.
And there you go right there. I'll give mine to the Angels offense too. You did well for Benny. You did well for me. Everybody have a good weekend out there. For my main man, Benny, it's Corey Parson, the fantasy executive. We are out.